There's been a murder. Victim's name, Jenny. Poor girl. Looks like you're getting a trial by fire, rookie. Don't worry, I've been solving mysteries for a long time. Ever heard of the hash pipe conspiracy? Yeah, well, let's just say we don't know the lyrics ass wide for nothing. Thank you. But I'm afraid this case is different. It's gonna take a little more than potty humor to solve the killer's murder mystery. There should be a... Oh, there it is. Whether it be hidden tracks after long silences or an entire website dedicated to Beatles anomalies, it's no secret that musicians love a little Easter egg hunt. And why not? It's not a huge leap from artistry to eccentricity, and especially in a band setting, it really just boils down to a bunch of weirdos trying to make each other laugh. But what if you took it a step further? What if all the little quirks and themes were connected? Well, then you're creeping on something totally different. The concept album, a record where all the songs work better together than they do apart. Like my organs. Sometimes this connection can be as loose as a general feeling of heartbreak. Other times you can find a narrative so dense that it warrants a film adaptation. The subject of this video doesn't have a Nostalgia Critic episode dedicated to it, but it was still my introduction to a connected song story. You see, I used to be really into the Killers. Like, a lot. Before the Strokes, Nirvana, even Weezer, they were my first favorite rock band. Basically, I'm saying if I started this channel in middle school, things would be different. So you can imagine the wave of excitement that hit me the other day when I was reminded of an old favorite piece of musical trivia. Mr. Brightside has a prequel/sequel. In case you aren't familiar, Mr. Brightside was the first single ever released by the Las Vegas-based rock band The Killers, or the Mormon Strokes, as New York Magazine once lovingly called them. But Mr. Brightside was not in fact a doting nickname for Joseph Smith, rather the chosen title of the song's protagonist as he faces the realization that the woman he loves is cheating on him. That's right, protagonist, because despite being based on the very real heartbreak of writer Brandon Flowers, the story takes some creative liberties.
Now I'm falling asleep, and she's calling a cab while he's having a smoke, and she's taking a drag.
This is actually a rare case of double embellishment. Even in the universe of the song, our protagonist has no way of knowing these things. It's all in his head now. The nickname Mr. Brightside comes from these assumptions. The singer is self-aware enough to realize he's being blinded by jealousy. But who is she, and why did our protagonist fall in love with her in the first place? Well, that's where 2012's Miss Atomic Bomb comes in. Yeah, you see, I was probably being a little excessive earlier when I introduced you to Mr. Brightside, when in all likelihood, it is the most popular song I have ever mentioned on this channel. Alright, except for that one. In America, the single performed fairly well. To be honest, kind of exceptionally for an at the time unheard of rock band. But overseas, Mr. Brightside is the third best-selling song in the UK. Period. And the best-selling not to have hit #1 on the top songs chart. I've seen multiple threads online of British people expressing their distaste for the song just for having heard it so much. And all that exposure has propelled Mr. Brightside to nearly 2.5 billion streams on Spotify and diamond record status. I run a music channel. I didn't know it went up to diamond. So it's really no surprise that The Killers never forgot about their first single, revisiting the story of the song on their fourth album, Battleborn. This time, we follow a green young man moving to the big city, oblivious to schoolgirls' lies. A character, again, obviously based on the song's writer, who, although being born in the suburbs of Las Vegas, moved to Utah for most of his childhood before moving back to the city as a teenager. Unfortunately, not long after, Flowers and this young man fall in love with a girl who turns out not to be the greatest influence. And despite the intense feelings he shared with her in the leather seats of his car, she takes her innocent soul, kisses him, and paints it black, as Miss Atomic Bomb turns our protagonist into Mr. Brightside. It's not the most uplifting story, admittedly, but there is some small solace. An interviewer actually mentioned the song to Flowers in 2013, asking if it stirred up any old feelings, and the singer explained, "It was 11 years ago, so I'm obviously over the girl. It doesn't keep me up at night, I've moved on, but there is a sense of closure in a weird way." Adding that it's specifically verse 3 where he addresses these feelings, singing,
The dust cloud has settled, and my eyes are clear.
So that's nice, isn't it? really wraps up this story with a bow at half the runtime of the video. Uh-oh. Yeah, I got more, because in case you've forgotten, we've still got a mystery to solve, and there are other multi-song stories in the Killer's catalog. Although chronologically, Mr. Brightside was the first song written for the album after Brandon Flowers heard the Strokes for the first time and literally threw away everything else he had written, the first song on Hot Fuss's tracklist is Jenny Was a Friend of Mine. Verse 1 begins with a story, though upon further inspection, it sounds more like a confession. We took a walk that night, but it wasn't the same. We had a fight on the promenade out in the rain. She said she loved me, but she had somewhere to go. She couldn't scream while I held her close. I swore I'd never let her go. How am I only just now realizing he rhymed go with go? At the chorus, we ditched the introspection and address an outside force. Tell me what you want to know. Oh come on, oh come on, oh come on. There ain't no motive for this crime. Jenny was a friend of mine. We learn two things. A crime has been committed, and the victim's name is Jenny. We hear more complaints in verse 2 before ending with the same line.
She couldn't scream while I held her close. I swore I'd never let her go.
The song ends with a second chorus, much the same as the first, as we leave not knowing whether our protagonist really killed Jenny or not. But we do know one thing. He's a liar. Or at the very least, he doesn't know the definition for motive. Having a fight on the promenade before a dramatic breakup does not make you seem very innocent, pal. Thankfully, our story grows a little more conclusive as we approach the end of the album, with Midnight Show. Banger, by the way. Verse 1 starts us off in conversation with someone. An offer is being made to go out on a date. I know what you want. I'm gonna take you to a midnight show tonight. Sounds innocent enough, but the truth is, he's got a blanket in the back seat on his mind. Could that mean, gasp, sex? Maybe. Or maybe just a moment of warmth together, before something much worse. Unfortunately, the girl hearing this offer doesn't have much to say on the matter, as when she turns her face to speak, no one heard her cry. If that doesn't sound familiar, then you haven't been paying attention, have you? No one could hear Jenny cry either, which means we've got ourselves another prequel in our hands. Not much else is learned about this doomed date before the chorus puts us in a car fleeing the scene of the crime. Then comes a pretty interesting insight into the end of the relationship, and maybe a motive to Jenny's murder. Make it go away without a word, but promise me you'll stay and fix these things I've heard. Much of the online discussion of the murder trilogy centers around rumors of cheating more than the actual act. So likely at the time that this pre-chorus takes place, our protagonist still has faith that Jenny hasn't actually cheated on him, while still expecting her to somehow end the rumors of it. That faith doesn't last long, however. By the bridge, we are already back to lyrics about a guilty girl with jealous hearts that start with gloss and curls. Could it really be as simple as Jenny's looks that made the protagonist assume that she was cheating, along with her short skirt? I took my baby's breath beneath the chandelier of stars in atmosphere and watched her disappear. This actually ties back to earlier in the song, when not only are there hopes of a blanket in the back seat, but a little place that sits beneath the sky, where Jenny was likely killed. At the top of the album, the protagonist's last moments with Jenny are described as happening on the promenade out in the rain. It could have also been under a chandelier of stars. It's then when we learn that the midnight show was really just a metaphor for death all along, as the "she said she loved me" line from Jenny Was a Friend of Mine echoes behind that same prerequisite. The secret being the murder. With only 2 people involved in the crime, and one of them being dead, it's really only up to the killer to keep the secret after all. As for the story of Jenny's murder, that's all we got for a few years, until the compilation album Sawdust brought us a formerly unreleased track, Leave the Bourbon on the Shelf. From the get-go, this song connects itself to the Murder trilogy with the line, "Oh Jennifer, you know I always tried." And as we'll learn, this song is yet another prequel, detailing the thoughts and actions that brought our protagonist to that fateful decision. Shaking like the devil when she lets me go, got a new place in how it's so much better. Falling over myself, the television's on, I turn it off and smile. It seems Jenny has dumped the poor sod, and though he tries to cope telling himself how much he prefers living alone, it's not quite enough. At the chorus, he turns to the bottle for some solace, only to realize that, "Darling, don't you see, I'm not satisfied until I hold you tight." He asks for a second chance, asks where he stands, but all he sees is her moving on with someone, as the wrecking ball rings louder. The rest of the song is understandably a big old mess of emotions and feelings. He swings between not liking her hair and loving her endlessly, all the while drinking more and more, as he comes to that same old conclusion, that he won't be satisfied until he holds her tight. Of course, the wrecking ball finally quits ringing in Midnight Show, as he really does hold her close one last time, only to face the consequences of his actions in Jenny Was a Friend of Mine. And though this seems like a pretty definitive ending, there is still one big question left unanswered. Did Jenny really cheat on the protagonist? It seems a little silly, but we've got some contradictory information. The first song of the trilogy, in release order, doesn't mention cheating at all, just a fight in the promenade. The second focuses more on the things he's heard and the way she looks. And the third, well, she is said to be seen with other men, but only after it's implied they broke up. And remember, she's the one who dumps him. Maybe she didn't cheat. Maybe it really was just a rumor that he obsessed over to the point where she tried to leave him for good, only for him to kill her before she could. A tragic, selfish end to a truly loving relationship, brought down by nothing more than an assumption. Remind you of anything?
And it's all in my head, but she's touching his chest now. He takes off her dress now. Let me go.
Hold on a second, I hear you say. It's called the Murder Trilogy, not the Murder Tetralogy. Right, but it's not like Brandon Flowers ever called it that.
We call it the trilogy.
Alright, well, maybe he was holding his cards close to his chest. And there is some connective tissue between these songs. Like a girl cheating, for one thing. Sure, it's a little broad, but how about the curls mentioned in Midnight Show? Have you ever seen the music video for Mr. Brightside? And isn't it a little odd that both songs center around assumptions and rumors when either one could have just definitively come out and said, "Boo-hoo, you cheated on me"? It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to expand the Murder Trilogy. This explanation on Genius Lyrics really confused me at first until I realized it was actually referencing a totally different song off Hot Fuss, somebody told me. Never thought I'd let a rumor ruin my moonlight. Could it be that all of the band's first album connects in some way to this murder mystery? I mean, they are called The Killers. Maybe, maybe not. It's definitely an interesting theory, and good for the sake of this video's title to combine the band's most popular song with the word murder. But we can't forget about Miss Atomic Bomb. This story, as embellished as some parts of it may be, is still about a real relationship and a real breakup. It's kind of silly to accuse Brandon Flowers of writing a dark crime thriller about this real girl that he actually knew. Also, if we're using Mr. Brightside's music video as a bit of evidence, then it's kind of hypocritical to ignore Miss Atomic Bomb's music video. And as much as I like to imagine that this is actually a letter from the detective who's reopening Jenny's cold case and old Steven Novak is looking all nostalgic about a girl he murdered, it just doesn't fit together at all. It makes more sense that all these songs tackled the same feelings, just in different ways. Mr. Brightside with a karaoke classic, the Murder Trilogy with a bit of imagination and melodrama, and Miss Atomic Bomb with nostalgia and closure. Still, much like that random person on Genius connecting the Murder Trilogy to Somebody Told Me, there's no law against trying to think up a story that runs through your favorite album. Music is meant to be up to interpretation, and there's no one way to enjoy art. So, next time you watch the music video to Mr. Brightside, boo and hiss every time Brandon Flowers is on screen, and shout at that curly-haired girl to run! Run away! He's a murderer! Don't trust him! Get out of there! Well, rookie, looks like you solved your first case just fine. But there'll be another, and another, and another. That's the awful thing about crime. It never ends. If only there was some way we could abolish crime. Hold on, let me just take a big sip from my glass before anything pops on screen. Abolish Everything is one of my favorite things in the world right now. Hosted by Chandler Dean, the series follows a revolving cast of comedian abolitionists as they argue why their pet peeves should be banned from society, while a panel of improvisers dubbed the political establishment rebuttal in favor of the status quo. The in-person audience chooses their champion each episode until all the winners return to compete in the season finale. The best part is, you can watch the series right now on Nebula, an independent creator-owned streaming service that encourages me and countless others to tell our stories our way, all without any ads or sponsors getting in the way. And it's a hell of a deal, because not only do you get incredible original material from some of the top performers offline, like Abolish Everything, you get a lot more from the top creators online, like Dracula's Ex-Girlfriend, a short film from Valentina V and Philosophy Tube's Abigail Thorne, or on the music side of things, The Ballad of John and Yoko from Lindsay Ellis. Two tales of doomed love told from totally different angles. But hey, that's Nebula. You can't put it in one box, so there's something there for everybody. With early and exclusive videos from some of my favorite creators like CinemaSticks and AltShiftX, I'm sure there's plenty from yours as well. So if you want to support my channel, enjoy the ludicrous Abolish Everything, and delve into a world of high-quality, ad-free, original, and exclusive material, then go to nebula.tv/markbutevil in the description of this video, or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 40% off. Because with my code, Nebula is just $36, $3 a month. Hey, if you liked the video, like the video. If you liked me, subscribe. I have more videos, so you should watch those videos. Thank you. Special thanks to not very many sources, because this was mostly just my own opinion on these songs, and to you for watching till the end. I'm gonna leave now. Goodbye.